tutorial we're going to use InDesign CC 2020 to go through Classroom in a Book Chapter 1, which is all about looking at the workspace itself and playing with this postcard here. So let's go ahead and go into InDesign and open up the start.indd file. You should have, in order to get into those InDesign files, you're going to make sure you download them from Google or Canvas. You need to unzip them, otherwise you will not be able to get in and open them. So make sure you know how to zip and unzip files. Let's go ahead and do a file, save as. Let's do a first initial last name, underscore InDesign, Classroom in a Book, Chapter 1. I make you guys name them this way so that each one has a different title, otherwise they all come in as the same name, which does not help me at all. And we do want it to be an InDesign document. Let's go ahead and say save. Oh, goodness. Alright, so I've got this saved. We're going to go ahead and take a peek around the workspace itself. So if I'm on a PC, Macs look a little bit different, which is fine. I do want you to get to know how it looks a little bit. So at the top of the screen, you have a menu bar and an application bar. With the Mac, your window is not always docked up to the top. I like it docked to the top so I don't accidentally do something else. The next thing we've got is the Tools panel over here on the left hand side. With the Tools panel, you'll see small little triangles. Underneath those triangles are usually additional tools that are hidden underneath. So it's how we can have multiple tools in the different programs without having to have so many different panels. So it makes it a little bit easier, but you do have to kind of remember what is hidden under what. This area in the middle is called our pasteboard or our document window. Depending on our workspace, we'll have different types of panels over here. So let's go ahead and choose our workspace so it looks the same. Let's go ahead and go to Window and Workspace, and let's go ahead and choose the, what's the book using for this one? Oh, let's go ahead and use the Essentials workspace for now. So depending on which workspace you have chosen will determine what type of panels you have going in and out. You also have the ability to bring panels in and out. So you can dock them, you can undock them, you can make them your own, you can save your own workspaces. So there's a lot of different kinds of flexibility. So one of the first things we want to do is take a peek at our postcard that they have given us here. If we look at pages, we can see that it's a 2-page postcard, so it's got a front and a back. If we look down here in the bottom left hand corner, we can see this zoomed in percentage. So we know that we're actually zoomed in quite a bit. If I want to go to view and do actual size, that will tell me how big that image actually is compared to other items. So sometimes you think you're working on an item that's super big and it's really 1 inch by 1 inch. Let's go ahead and do fit, spread, and window so I can see the whole thing. Now it's still kind of blurry and you're wondering why they would bother to put a blurry picture in. Well, they didn't. It's the way InDesign works with trying to maintain resources. So go ahead and go down to View, Display Performance, and change it to High Quality, and you're going to get those nice high quality images in there instead. So let's see, first thing is grab the selection tool. It's the very top one. There are tool tips. If you hover over each of the tools, it should give you a tool tip to let you know which one you're looking at. So let's go ahead and click on there. Now, each item in InDesign lives in some type of container or some type of frame. So let's go ahead and grab this graphics frame, and you can see how you can move that around back and forth. So that is how you will grab individual items. You know which one you're working on because it has the grabber bars around the outside. So it's important to make sure you pay attention to where things are. I'm going to do Control Z until I get back to where I was. Alright, so it does let me go backwards. Alright, let's go ahead now and play with some text. So I'm going to come down, it's about 5 tools down, and grab that Type tool. And I want to go ahead and play with some of this down here. So let's go ahead and make Choose and Care a little bit different. So I'm going to click on Choose. I'm going to come down here to Properties. And Properties is giving me all kinds of information. So character, I can change the font. Maybe I want to change how big it is. So maybe I want to make it bold instead. I can change how big it is. So let's make it 15 point. I can choose the color. Right now it's kind of a funky orange, so I'm going to click on this fill and come down and let's make it the dark blue instead. And I can go ahead and do the same thing for care. Oh, it didn't turn blue. Let's go back and try that again. Blue. Alright, now it's there. Alright, let's go ahead and do the same for care. So you can choose a different color for that one if you want. And click on the actual T, which is the color. My computer's going a little slow today. Maybe I'm going to make this one bright green. I'm going to go ahead and make it 15 points also. And go ahead and make it bold as well. Alright, so that's how we go ahead and change those individual items. So some of the other things we have to do, we can play with lines, we can play with other items. Let's go ahead and play with the line tool, which is right below the text tool. So I'm going to grab that line tool. When I go to my line tool, I can see over on my properties the different elements that I have to create different types of lines. So I want to actually put a line right here in between. Oh, undo. Control Z is undo. In between here. So I'm going to hold my mouse, I'm going to hold shift and drag across. By holding shift, it makes it so I can't go crooked. I'm going to go ahead and let go of my mouse, and then I'm going to let go of shift. Now the important thing to know with a stroke or with a line is to know it's just a stroke. You can change this fill color all day long and nothing's going to happen to it. You have to change the actual stroke color. So let's go ahead and make that stroke color, let's make it dark blue. And let's go ahead and change it. Let's make it bigger. So make it bigger and fatter. We can change the type. So I'm going to go ahead and make it Japanese dots. So you have a lot of different options to play with those different types of elements as you are learning to move around. So one of the things you might want to do is be able to scroll around. So you can either get around by using your selection tools, your side, or you can go ahead and use this hand. The hand will go ahead and help you drag things around. You can really easily change to the hand from something else by holding the space bar, and it will give you that hand. Control minus will zoom you out. Control plus will zoom you in, or you can use those zoom tools. Alright, so right now if we see this, it looks really pretty. We have several different modes of looking at a document in InDesign. So I'm going to go here to my preview mode. Preview shows you what it looks like without all of the background on it. So I want to go ahead and change it to my normal mode. Normal mode is going to go ahead and show you where all the different frames are. It's going to show you things like where paragraphs are, and it's much better to get in the practice of designing in the normal mode. If you practice in the preview mode, you miss things like spelling. So let's go ahead. I'm going to purposely spell that wrong. So it's going to show me that it's incorrect because it's got the red line underneath it. If I was in the preview mode, I would never see that. I would never get that cue. So you want to make sure that you're in normal. Also go up to Edit, Spelling, and turn that dynamic spelling on, because you want to make sure that you are not making very simple little typos, because they do detract from your design overall. Alright, so let's go ahead and play with a few other things. Let's go ahead and add a couple of shapes to our object. So let's go ahead and grab a rectangle. There's a difference between a rectangle and a rectangle frame. A rectangle is actually just going to draw a rectangle. A rectangle frame you can put something else into. Let's grab that rectangle frame and let's draw a box down here at the bottom. Now if I just draw it, it will let me do any proportions I want. If I want to make sure I keep it square, I need to hold shift down. When I hold my shift, I let go of my mouse, I let go of my shift. Alright, let's go ahead and fill that with something. So let's choose a color to fill that with. Oh, how about the dark red? And on this one, let's put another stroke so you can kind of see what the difference between a stroke and a line is. Let's go ahead and put a dark blue on there. And we'll do the same thing we did before. Was it like 5 points and Japanese dots? Alright, Alright, so you can kind of see that you don't have to draw two separate boxes in order to put something on here. You just have to draw one. So your goal is always to have fewer text boxes than more text boxes. Alright, so instead of the rectangle, let's go ahead and grab the ellipse. And we're going to grab and put an ellipse up here. An ellipse is a circle, so you can do a free-form ellipse with without shift. Control Z, hold shift, and it'll give you a perfect circle. Let go of mouse, left go of shift. On this one, let's just do a fill, or just do a stroke. Let's do a stroke with a purple outline, and maybe make it a little bit thicker. Alright, so you can see you've got a couple different ways of adding options. If I don't like where it is, I can grab that selection tool and move it around. So we've got quite a few different options. Let's go ahead and change our workspace out. Let's go to Window, let's go to Workspace, and let's try Advanced. And you'll see that it's going to change out my panels and the way things look. So with Advanced, you get your control bar here at the top. You might be traditionally used to seeing it this way. They did change it in one of the more recent versions. Alright, let's go ahead and play with our type again. So let's grab our type, and I'm going to hit this word butterflies. If I double click in it, I can just select the word butterflies. So right now it's Myriad Pro 31. So let's go ahead and make it something else. I'm going to go ahead and make it into some type of scripty type font. It'll depend on your computer as to what you have there. Now I have a problem in that it just hyphenated, so I need to go ahead and bring my point size down, and I need to turn off hyphenations. So I'm going to go up to a Window. I'm going to come down here to Type and Tables. I'm going to open up Paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and dock this because I want to make sure it's something I can use again. So I click and hold it till I get the blue line. And that'll make it so I can get those panels back and forth. So I want to turn hyphenation off. So if it's hyphenating and you don't want it to, it's under Paragraph. Most of the time you probably don't want it to. Alright, so we've played with those two. We could also go through and maybe we want to change the color. So I've got my butterflies here in white. So let's double click and do how about that dark blue again? Okay, now click out here, and now we get the dark blue. So you do have quite a few different options to play with how your text is going to look. So now let's look at some of the things down below. On the bottom, you've got your screen that shows you just how much you're zoomed in on something. So you could see it at 2400% if you wanted to. Let's go back to 100. We can also see which page number we're on here. So I'm on page 1. I've got the drop down which shows me I can go to page 2 pretty easily, or I could use my Pages panel and use it to get around that way. So Adobe always gives you several different ways to see something. So it's kind of a matter of understanding and knowing. So let's go to Window, let's go to Arrange, and let's look up New Window for whatever the name of it is. So this allows you to, in one window, leave it the same. In the other window, we can zoom in a whole bunch, and we can make changes and see how it's going to affect the entire thing. So it allows you to look at it basically in a small mode and in a big mode at once. So it makes your life a little bit easier. Alright, so let's go ahead, and we worked with some panels. Panels usually will have some type of double arrow, which will make it behave some way, a different way. So this one gives me more, this one gives me less. Depending on how much screen space you have, you might want to learn just the icons. So it really depends on how you want to play with the different types of workspaces. So if you find one you really love, you can do a workspace and do new workspace, and if you've got it perfect, it's totally the way you want it, name it after yourself, because that way you can go back and say, hey, this is the one I like to use all the time. Alright, so let's look at the zoom tool a little bit. With zoom tool, we can plus and zoom in, which is nice. We could also hold Alt and zoom in, and that will zoom us back out. You can just do a square around something and zoom in just on that part. So I'm going to zoom out, hold my Alt and go back out. So being able to zoom in and see where you're at can make a big difference. Being able to navigate through your pages is very important. Alright, I like using my hand tool. Hand makes it very easy to get around without having to find my scroll bars over on the side, so it depends on how you're going to work it. Oh, why did my butterflies do that? Let's go back to paragraph and turn hyphenate back off. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Control S and save what I've got so far. I'm going to grab that selection tool and grab that free community workshop. And I'm going to bring it over. But if you notice, we have a problem called, where'd it go? It just disappeared. InDesign works with layers just like Photoshop. So we need to move this to the front. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to do arrange. And I want to do bring to front. So now I've got that in front of those other things. So a lot of times you will have context menus, things you can right click and see what your other options are. So I'm clicked on the image right now, right click, and it gives me a lot of different options to things I could do with that individual element, which can make your life a lot easier depending on what's going on. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to page 2. Oh, that's our master. We don't want the master. And let's go ahead and play with this object right here. So it's all one thing. Let's go ahead and right click and see what our options are. One of them is effects. So let's go ahead and add a drop shadow. And make sure your preview is turned on. By default, it's usually turned off. You can play with how deep that shadow is going to be. You can play with just how dark you're going to make it. So drop shadows are very nice in that they make a kind of a flat setting look a little bit nicer. Make it pop off a little bit more. You have to apply drop shadows to objects. So I can't just apply it to one word the way you could in like a Photoshop. So you have to kind of pay attention to that part. So continue to explore on your own. Make this your own. Play with it. Let's go ahead and go to butterflies on this side and change that font again. You should get the ones that you just used here at the top. I can do a shift enter and push that onto another line. So play with it, make things different. You know, get to know the workspace. The better you know the tools in the workspace, the easier it will be when I tell you what you need to know in order to move forward. All right, now that you've played, you've done your thing, let's go ahead and make sure you know how to save it. So I'm going to do a Control S. Now in order to turn something in, you have to what's called package it. We have to package because it's the only way that I can get the handoff, that you can give me all of your fonts, all of your images, all of your InDesign documents in a way that I can open them, because your computer has different fonts and elements than mine does. So once I've got it here, I'm going to do a file. I'm going to come down here to package. Package is going to show me quite a few things. We already went through packaging in chapter 13. Let's go ahead and say package. It's going to say, where do you want to put this? I'm going to go ahead and put it in my lesson 1 file. And instead of the folder, I'm going to put PKG, which tells me this is my packaged folder in lesson 1. I want the fonts, I want the graphics, I do want it to update. I want IDML, I want a high quality PDF. I'm going to go ahead and say package. So just packaging it isn't the whole thing. You're then going to go to your lesson 1 on your flash drive or wherever you're saving these things. It's really important to be an organized designer because there's a lot of moving pieces for this class. So I've got this one that says PKG. Get rid of that one. Alright, so I've got the one that says PKG that we just made right now. So I'm going to double click it. In that folder, you should have one for fonts. So it should have a copy of all the fonts that I'm using. It should have a copy of all the links, so any images that are in there. And a copy of an IDML, which allows me to open your InDesign in an older version if you're not on the same one as I am, or if I'm on the same one as you, your InDesign document and a PDF. So you should have all those in there. Double check it in your package before you do anything. Then you're going to compress just this one folder. So you're going to right click, send to compressed file. It's a little bit different on a Mac. I think it's like send as zipped on a Mac, but I'm not actually sure. Then you're going to go ahead and submit this packaged file to Canvas. So you've got to make sure you're turning in the right thing. You'll find if you get a 0 on assignment that you know you did, you probably didn't package it right. Usually look in the comments and there'll be something that's saying not packaged or there's a problem. So make sure you learn how to package and just turn in the right thing. Do not give me every single lesson in here when you package. I only want the one folder. I look forward to seeing what you come up with.